The marble halls of the Capitol groaned under the pressure of summer heat. Outside, thunderheads rolled across a bruised August sky, casting eerie shadows over the dome. Inside, the air was thick with tension and the sour smell of too much coffee and ambition. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing was underway, and it had the electricity of a courtroom drama crossed with a funeral. The crowd hushed as Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana leaned into his microphone, his voice low, the way a hound dog growls before the snap. His southern drawl, so often mistaken for warmth, carried a blade's edge today. "Judge Jackson," he said, drawing out her name like a charge sheet. "I'm trying real hard to understand why your security detail costs the taxpayers $2 million a year. That's more than what we spend protecting some embassies." At the witness table sat Judge Celia Jackson, her spine straight, fingers interlocked with the calm precision of a woman used to pressure. She was a woman of 49, striking not just in appearance but in presence, still-willed, meticulous, unshaken. Yet in that moment, something flickered in her eyes. A tremor of something deeper. Not fear, but a reckoning. She had prepared for this. She hadn't, however, prepared for the ghosts. Celia Jackson's journey to this moment had been long. Rising from the clay of a Baltimore neighborhood where sirens were lullabies and justice was something you hoped for more than expected. Her father, a city bus driver who quoted James Baldwin at breakfast, died when she was 15. Her mother, a nurse who worked night shifts at the VA hospital, kept them afloat with calloused hands and humming gospel songs. Celia learned early that survival was not a given, it was a decision. She excelled, outworked everyone, and eventually wore the black robe. She became the youngest woman ever appointed to the D.C. Circuit Court. But climbing the ladder meant earning enemies. Rulings on civil rights, police reform, corporate corruption, these weren't just law to her. They were promises made to the little girl who sat outside the courtroom while her cousin was sentenced to 30 years for a crime he didn't commit. And now on this sweltering August day, her reputation, her integrity, and a critical piece of her safety were on trial. Kennedy's eyes locked on hers. $2 million, Judge? That's a mighty steep price to protect one person. Can you explain that to the American people? She paused, not because she was unsure, but because the weight of the moment demanded more than facts. Senator Kennedy, she began, voice clear but firm. In the past year alone, I've received over 300 threats. Some credible, some terrifyingly detailed. My daughter's school was evacuated in April because someone thought it was clever to text a bomb threat using my name. My husband has been followed. We've moved twice in 6 months. The cost of my security isn't just about my safety, it's about preserving the independence of the judiciary from intimidation. A low murmur passed through the chamber like wind through a graveyard. Kennedy sat back, folding his arms. That's real unfortunate. But so's the cost to taxpayers. The hearing spiraled. Kennedy pushed harder, invoking fiscal responsibility. Others joined in. Some came to her defense. Senator Ortega from New Mexico, fire-eyed, leaned in to note the hypocrisy of Congress. Approving military increases without question, but dissecting every dollar spent on protecting judges whose rulings risk their lives. But the damage was done. The narrative was shifting. Behind the scenes, Jackson's staff scrambled. Assistant U.S. Marshal Devin Briggs, once a ranger in Kandahar, now her lead on security, watched from the gallery with a clenched jaw. He'd carried her daughter out of a school lockdown. He'd intercepted a man with a loaded pistol outside her chambers. He knew better than most what the cost of complacency could be. The hearings continued for 3 more days. Outside the courthouse, protesters lined the steps, some with signs calling her a hero, others with megaphones accusing her of corruption. The news media frothed with opinions. And all the while, Jackson moved like a ghost through her own life-judging cases by day, sleeping with a panic button under her pillow by night. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain envelope, handwritten, no return address. Inside, just a line of scrawl. If they won't remove you, I will. The security team upped their measures, but something inside Celia cracked. It wasn't the threat itself, it was the cold realization that her presence had become a lightning rod, that her family was no longer safe. Devon found her that night, in the empty courtroom, standing in her robes beneath the seal of the United States. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. She turned to him with eyes tired beyond measure. "I'm not afraid for me," she whispered. "I'm afraid that if I stay, something irreversible will happen, and they'll use it to silence women like me for a generation." She filed her resignation 3 days later. When the news broke, it hit like a tsunami. Senators scrambled. Kennedy, caught off guard, issued a curt statement expressing respect for her decision. Senator Ortega nearly threw a microphone. Activists wept. News outlets ran wall-to-wall coverage. The moment of truth came in her farewell statement, delivered from the same room where she'd been grilled. She stood before the cameras with grace that didn't flinch. "I have always believed in justice," she said. "But justice must not come at the cost of peace of mind or the safety of one's children. My work has been to hold a mirror up to power, and sometimes, power doesn't like what it sees. My resignation is not surrender. It is a call to arms for every woman, every judge, every servant of the law who dares to believe the system can change. It must, it will, but I will not let my family be collateral in that war." There was silence after she stepped down. A long, aching silence. In the days that followed, 2 things happened. First, Kennedy faced a political firestorm. Polls turned. Veterans called in 2 radio shows to say they'd take a bullet for Judge Jackson. A bipartisan group of senators introduced a new security funding bill named after her. Second, she disappeared from public life. Some said she moved to Colorado, opened a legal clinic for abused women. Others believed she was writing a book. Devon received a postcard 3 months later. No return address. Just a quote. "To live without hope is to cease to live." She had scrawled her name at the bottom. And nothing else. The Senate moved on, as it always does. The hearings resumed. The headlines faded. But the echo of her voice, her integrity never quite left those halls. In time, Celia Jackson became more than a judge. She became a symbol. Not just of sacrifice, but of clarity, of a system that can chew you up, but cannot destroy your truth if you stand firm. And Senator John Kennedy, some say he softened, others say he learned nothing. But, in private, on late nights, he often re-watched the footage of her final speech. No one knew why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was respect, or maybe, just maybe, even the toughest dogs sometimes remember what it means to listen. And in that stillness, in that silence that follows after power has spoken and left the room, maybe that's where real change begins.